So our next speaker is Allan Grant. He is a co-founder and CTO at Hired. Allan, nice to meet you here in Lviv.
Thank you for having me. It's been an amazing experience so far.
Yeah, so cool. Did you already had your speech?
Yeah, I spoke just earlier, just a couple of hours ago.
Super. So right now you can see a video of Allan in internet on VYT Arena site. So Allan, you are from Ukraine, but your name is pretty not Ukrainian, but more American. Why so?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I was born in Ukraine in Nikolaev under the name Mihailo, Misha Sapov. And when I was 10 years old, my family moved to U.S. That was in '94. Just before then, after the collapse of USSR, my dad started one of the first companies in Ukraine. And when he went to start that company, he wanted it to have a personal name. And the name that he chose was Allan Grant. And I was really proud of my dad for having started a company. We had Allan Grant branded, like toys and everything. And so I started using it sort of as my fake name. And when I came to US for the first time in school, they said, "What do you want to be called?" And I said, "Well, can you call me Allan?" And they said, "Sure." And so then when I was 10 years old, both my father and I changed our name legally to Allan Grant. And for me, that always represented this, kind of desire to, escape communism and establish, myself as a capitalist and become an entrepreneur. And so that's helped motivate me in the future.
Wow, super interesting story. I mean, I don't know that many people who changed their names like till this moment. But tell me, how did you get to the point you are in right now? So you're right now an entrepreneur, you're a CTO. What was your way? What's your story?
Yeah, so my story, as mentioned, came to US when I was 10. I was always into computers. I was always into programming, something also that I got kind of from my father. And when I was in college, this dream sort of kept coming back to me of wanting to eventually become an entrepreneur, and I wasn't really sure what it took. And then one day, I remember laying in bed and not being able to fall asleep and thinking, okay, let me just start something. I don't know what I'm going to do, but let me just start reading things, get some newspapers. And I found out about business plan competitions, ended up transferring to a different university and writing a business plan, and ultimately starting a web development company, outsourcing actually to my hometown in Nikolaev. And that company grew to about 50 people by the time I graduated college. So it was very promising. But ultimately, that company collapsed, and it left me $500,000 in debt. At that point, I didn't really have many other choices because I wanted to pay off the debt, and it would have taken a really long time through a normal traditional job. And because of the kind of the success I had had up to that point, I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. The next company is going to go well. But the next few companies that I tried to start actually didn't go anywhere, and so I felt like there were a few years sort of struggle with failure of trying to figure out the next project until one company back started a company called Talkable, which actually half of the company is now based in Kiev. We have 25 people in Kiev.
I've heard about this company.
Thank you. Yeah, and then after that, Hired.
Yeah, and tell me more about Hired. What the product is about and which benefits it gives to its users. Because as I understood, this is a platform which kind of disrupts the way how we think about hiring.
Yeah, so Hired, the interesting thing about how that started was it was the only company out of that list of companies that wasn't started intentionally with, okay, I need to start a company right now. It was started with a different purpose. It was started with solving the problem that we had. Me and my two co-founders, we met over drinks in San Francisco, and they both don't live in San Francisco. They flew in to speak on a panel about how to start marketplace companies. And both of them have started two successful marketplace companies each, which is very rare. And so as we were kind of hanging out over drinks, we were talking about our biggest challenges building companies. And hiring great talent has been, a big challenge for every one of us, and all the companies have been struggling with it. And so we said, well, what would it take to get the attention of, of the engineers that everybody's trying to hire? Let's say you're an engineer at Google or Facebook. You're getting, 5 messages every single day from recruiters trying to recruit you. So you just, mark as spam, you delete them. What would it take to get their attention? We said, well, what if the company that reached out were to provide the details of not just what the company is, but also what the position is? What if they were to put a number down? What if they say the salary would be this, the equity would be this, up front before you interview? What if we were to show that to other companies that are also interested in interviewing the same person? And so that was sort of the original idea. The original name for Hired was actually Developer Auction. And we weren't sure if this would work, if companies would do this, but we said, well, if nothing else, TechCrunch will write about it. Height of the bubble, engineers selling themselves to the highest bidder. And the reality actually turned out to be pretty different. Companies are not competing on salary. Companies are not trying to, outbid. But people are very interested in this very efficient, transparent matchmaking process. So from then, we've, very much the same model. We've grown and developed 19 cities that we're live in now. So we look at this as a local marketplace, like an Uber or an Airbnb. We have to be intentional about which places we expand into.
But concerning the Ukraine itself,
Yeah.
right now you're hiring the best talent from Ukraine to companies which are outside of the
No,
Ukraine.
no.
Not
Actually,
only, yeah?
we don't operate in Ukraine at all. So because it's a local marketplace, we're in San Francisco, New York, London, a few other cities, but we don't have any base in Ukraine. Once we come here, we would expect that a large majority of the hires would be local. Only a small percentage of our business is relocation, but mostly it's people hiring talent that's already in their city.
I see. So what are your plans for this product development in the future?
So our goal basically is to continue to disrupt the traditional recruiting agency, agencies that are taking contingency recruiting fees, and we think that this opportunity exists not just in software engineering, but in lots of other spaces, from healthcare, finance, accounting. We're talking about an industry with over $400 billion a year being spent on recruiting fees. So our plan is to continue to expand first geographically and continue to strengthen our base in the cities that we're already live in. The way that we call this strategy is basically focusing on the product suite, on software engineers, designers, data scientists. But eventually, we'd like to expand sort of beyond that to continue to tackle the global recruiting market.
Let's talk about the competitors, because right now I know we have TopTal. Yeah, they are doing some hiring stuff, and they are also pretty in the same niche as you are. And also we have kind of Angel Call, LinkedIn, and other stuff where the companies are showing already their packages. They are showing which equity they give into those people. So what's your competitive advantage, and at which market do you operate?
Yeah. So actually, interestingly, when we started in this space, it was pretty cold. There weren't a lot of other things happening, and since then we've had, I think imitation is the best form of flattery. We've had a lot of imitation. AngelList has repeatedly launched products
So they were after you.
that are identical down to the text on every button, down to the countdown timer, every UI element. Another interesting company, Indeed, has launched a product that's tried to directly copy what we do, but they've had a lot of challenges with it because it's a marketplace business. So you have to have supply and demand appear on both sides. And when you expand from San Francisco software engineers to New York software engineers, you have to do this over again. You have to find the candidates and the companies that have to show up at the same time. Otherwise, one side's going to have a bad experience, they're going to tell their friends, and it's not going to happen again. So our competitive advantage is in knowing how to continue to launch and grow marketplaces. We're fundamentally a marketplace company.
Wow, and you said that you know how to grow those marketplaces. Right now, I'm working in the marketplace. I mean, with a startup from United Arab Emirates, not in the hiring sphere, and I know a lot of our listeners and watchers. They are also working in this sphere. So, how to be successful in the platform development, in the web platform development? What are the main things I need to pay attention as a product manager or as a business developer, etc.?
Well, I think marketplaces are a very complex business, so there's a lot of different things. Kind of before answering that question, something that I've been thinking about recently is kind of difficulty levels of businesses. And I felt like I was lucky that the first business I started, an outsourcing company, was what I'm calling difficulty level 1. You buy something and you sell something, right? Buy low, sell high. Talkable is difficulty level number 2, which is when you build something and you sell it, right? So now you have to be able to source and sell and find customers, but you also have to develop something. You're extracting margin through product development. Well, hired is in the third type, where you would fit social networks and marketplaces, which is something that extracts margin from a network. And a lot of times in these businesses, the folks that are getting the value maybe aren't the folks that are paying for it. You get a lot of complexity. So I think that in these businesses, there's lots of different approaches depending on the type of marketplace. With us, for hired, what we found was important was focusing on liquidity, meaning making sure that the folks that are in the market on both sides can actually interact with each other, which is why we focus on expanding one city at a time. Because had we launched immediately all over US, for example, you may have great engineers in New York, great companies in San Francisco. They're trying to connect with each other and they're having a bad experience. And so a lot of what we've done is focus on liquidity, making sure that the two sides of the market can actually connect.
And concerning the business model of the Hired, so how do you work? I mean, I understood that for candidates, I see the equity, I see the salary, I see all this stuff. But for companies, do you have maybe some lower rates for them to hire this person, or you're just already given the best people for the market, and your value proposition is just to message those people and that they will hear this message from those recruiters?
So the main value that we're providing to the companies is in allowing them to find the talent that they otherwise would not know is currently on the market. Virtually everybody that's on Hired, the candidates are currently employed. Their job search may be very confidential, and they're very, very early in that process. So they're sort of raising their hand. They're saying, maybe I'm not entirely happy, or maybe I'm ready for a change. Let me see what's out there. And so we're able to find these people and provide them with a much better experience to get that than going through traditional channels. And so this gives companies access to some of the most talented engineers, designers, and product managers right as they're starting their job search. And the way that we monetize is that we charge the companies either a placement fee, 15% of the first year's salary, so about half as much as
Of the
traditional.
first year's salary?
15, 1-5.
Ah,
Yeah.
15.
So about half as much as traditional recruiters, which charge 25 or 30%. Yep. And also, some of our clients that have been with us for a long time are in a subscription model, and so they're able to make hires at a fixed rate, many more hires. So that's how we monetize. The candidates don't pay anything. We actually pay the candidates when they get a job.
Yeah, because the candidate is your commodity, your equity, which you have on your platform. Yeah, and I've heard very interesting thing. I was to Boston Startup Week recently, and they said, one of the girls who was working on the platform, she said that if you want to grow the user base of your platform, you need to put a lot of vendors inside this platform. So as I understand, does it work for your company? And as I understand, for your company, it works in the way the more candidates you have on this platform, the more companies are willing to go to those candidates.
I'm not sure if I understood the question regarding vendors. What do you mean by vendors?
I mean, vendors, okay, so you have a platform like Airbnb. So you have vendors who are renting, who are lending their...
I see, yeah. Supply versus demand.
Suppliers and demand.
Got it,
okay.
yeah. So I think it depends on where the business is constrained. And I think that there are marketplaces that are demand constrained, and there's others that are supply constrained. So in our case, we're in a supply constrained marketplace, right? There's a lot of companies that are all trying to hire the same talent, and an individual can only take one of the jobs. So in our case, we've needed to basically first make sure that the supply is solved, and then the demand. But a lot of times you have to switch which side you're focused on. And so once you have some candidates that are on the platform, now you want to deliver the best experience possible to them. And what they're getting out of it is connections with the companies. And so now you have to focus on the demand side. So it depends on the business. It's sort of how do you solve that chicken and egg, which side to focus on first.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. And concerning your particular role, so you are CTO at Hired. Which challenges do you face in your everyday job?
So my role at Hired has been to build the product, develop the product, and develop the technology. We're now at a stage where we've been lucky enough to attract a fantastic management team, fantastic VP of product, VP of engineering, CEO, and so now my day-to-day job is working kind of at the strategy and board level with the team kind of running a lot of the day-to-day operations. But originally, I wrote the first version of the product and have continued to build the development team. One of the things I'm really excited about is that our team at Hired, our engineering team, we've built the entire team on the platform. And so early on, as we started to build the team, everybody had this great experience where you've used it as a candidate, and then once you join, we have you using it to find other coworkers, and so now you've used it as a company, and so the folks that are actually building the product have had the experience.
Yeah, but this usually happens. I'm using LinkedIn, I like their product, I'm going to LinkedIn, or I'm using other stuff, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, cool. And just to finish our interesting talk, I want to ask you, there are a lot of CTOs will be watching this video, I suppose so. So what is your key message and piece of advice to them?
Well, to CTOs in particular, I would say that my word of advice would be to figure out what is it that's the real fundamental value of the technology, and to focus on that. Like with Hired, I feel like the technology behind it is not web applications. If you think about it at the surface level, you've got something that has to work, right? You have to have the links work. At the next level, it has to convert. But at the deepest level, what our technology is, it's marketplace technology. It's how do you create incentives? How do you create liquidity? A lot of folks right now are focused on blockchain, and to me, if you're talking about ICO, if you're talking about blockchain technology, you could be talking about the technical aspects of blockchain, or you could be talking about economic technology, which is how do you create incentives. So I think that one of the most important things for a CTO to focus on is to figure out what is actually the really tough technical challenge. It may not be the things that you're building. It may be kind of the magic behind it all.
Thank you so much, Alan, for this great talk.
Thank you.